approve minutes from the previous meeting at the next regular council meeting, okay? So, Mr. Nelson is here to graciously educate us on more grants, fundings, process, the whole schmear of maybe getting some more projects completed. So, last meeting, Mr. Nelson, some people had this, the council for sure had this flyer that you gave us before. So, I'm gonna give it to
Yeah,
you.
so Councilman Wold, I believe it was, had some questions about funding opportunities, as well as other folks on the council, and I wanted to provide some information and see if I could get some feedback from folks in town, from the council and Public Works, about what some of those priorities are, and talk to you about what funding programs might be out there, and give you the information so that you know exactly what I'm dealing with. You all right? Okay. So, the projects, I understand there's a question about sewer. Do you all want to start with sewer? And do you have any specific needs that are on your mind related to sewer?
Well, yeah, the sewer has become a big issue here in the last few weeks that we're all aware of up here on 6th Street especially. There's two parts of the street basically, I guess 2 separate blocks that some are saying they're private sewer lines, but they're having major sewer issues with people backing up in their basements and stuff and they can't even stay in their houses. So to me, that would be like an emergency. As far as what can the town do to help, or how, because if somebody here is saying it's your private sewer line, but yet everywhere else is tied into the town sewer, I mean, there's a lot of gray area in that, and I guess the main thing is we'd just like to get these people fixed and going. I mean,
So the issue is on 6, so I mean, it's spelled out.
that word, that's the main one
That's
that
the
I'm
big
aware
one
of
right now.
at the moment.
Okay. Sorry, where's the restroom? Straight down the hall there, okay. Just around the hall. I'll point her to it, sorry about that, there you go.
Just right there.
Right there. So with 6 and with the sewers, the question of whether or not it's public or private is kind of the first question you gotta ask and answer, right? Now, the town can elect to use your own crews to fix any number of things, but that's kind of.
I can tell you, I don't wanna overstep my boundaries here, but I can tell you right now, this town is not equipped to fix the problems that are going on right now.
So private, and that being the case, private and public is defined in your sewer ordinance really clearly as anything anywhere in town that from the connection to the main, which the main is, as I understand it, a line that collects multiple services. So a service is a single line that comes off a house. A main collects multiple services.
Right.
So the responsibility of the homeowner is from the connection to the main to their house. That's defined as private.
Right, but, so is that a private line that is running east and west, or is that?
If it
there's like
serves a
three-
single home.
If I
then it's-
remember right, in each section of there's 3 homes tied into the same, what they thought was the main sewer line.
Yeah,
Well, apparently it's only a 4-inch line, not a 6 to begin with, and they're being told that it's a private sewer line on both parts of this. Now, the houses on the corners are tied into the, years ago when they redid I can't remember what year that was for sure, that was a long time ago, but they redid a lot of the sewer lines and stuff in town. But they're running up and down like this way, north and south.
yeah, and if the problem is after where those private services are tied together, because if there's like 3 that kind of come together into one,
Right.
it's a bit of a gray area as to whether or not that's a main or a service. And if it's a main, then it's the town's responsibility.
Right.
And if it's before where they all tie together, it's probably a private issue, and there are funding programs to help with that. But they would run through the private property owner. So if the property owner was in a household that was low to moderate income, which is defined as a household that owns, or that takes in less than 80% of the state's or the regional average, or if the household is owned by folks that are over 62 years old, there's a couple of programs for that through USDA and Housing and Urban Development. And Mayor, I think I sent you some links for that. But it would be private. It wouldn't be something that the town could apply for. Either.
See, and I don't know. And I don't think most of us really know the exact true answer to that as far as, is it a town problem or is it the homeowner's problem?
Okay, excuse me a second. Do we have here that diagram that we had of the three lines? Tied in?
I have the.
Not right there. Okay.
You have it too?
The one from, I have the picture that Rodney and them drew, or whatever, and then I have that one that you gave me a copy of that, but you can't hardly, I mean,
Right.
you could see where I drew on in red ink, but.
Right, well, it's the same thing.
Okay.
Right.
Mike, would you mind giving that to Steve?
Yeah.
I think I've seen, I'm sorry, I think I have seen.
That may
This is
be
kind of where, cause
clear
me
it
and
up.
Paul went over this in her office one day, and they drew bigger pictures of it,
Okay, there we go.
like, this is how it, what was the one with red on it was how it would be after it's fixed,
That
correct?
was a proposal.
This was a proposal of how it would be
Yeah.
after
And
it's
then,
fixed.
and that clearly, everything in red would be private, and everything in black.
To that, but this would have to be, this is the proposal that they would put a manhole
Yeah, which it
right here,
should-
and this is how it is
right
apparently right now that they could see, but they couldn't even get a camera to run all the way. I mean, you know, this is older than we all are.
Your camera was too short.
Yeah,
It was close.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, so,
I don't know, I'm just trying to,
The first thing I would suggest is get in touch, because you had Curtis with C&E, right? Was it somebody with Basin?
Basin.
Basin.
Came up. Yeah, I would have somebody with AAA sweeping. If the town is interested in ponying up some money to help get some TV work done, I would touch base with AAA sweeping or Roto-Rooter, because I know they've got some longer cameras.
see, I can't make that decision on my own, obviously, but.
Well, yeah,
I'm just.
we've got the body that decides these things sitting right
Right,
here.
but I mean, I would like to see the town do what we could to help these people out, because last thing we want is people get pissed off and moving out of town, because,
Yep.
Right.
and then everything just keeps falling apart, nothing.
Okay,
Yep.
so Mr. Nelson, what you were saying is, here's the three houses that the latest that Mike was
Yep.
talking about. If this was mine, then I own all over down to here where the main is. And that's what is the question.
The question is whether or not it owns all the way to the main, or where those three houses tie in together.
This
At the
is.
top, right there, that's the question, is does the main start there, or
No,
does service?
the
Well,
main, the main's down here.
According to who?
That's what I'm trying to figure out was,
This goes through Jeannie and Oscar's yard. And this right here is,
They paid the city for their sewer.
the main line is right here, so that's what you're connecting to, the main line. So this, according to the map that we have,
I
this
mean, that's what I'm
is
going
your,
off of the map too, but I.
yeah. And this part right here is the question.
Yeah, that to me
Yeah.
is a gray area, cause it's carrying multiple,
I guess that's the gray area that we're trying to
yeah,
figure
so.
out is the big,
So, and the question
Scratch
is
right now.
is that where the problem is, or is it in one of those forks above, or did?
see, we don't know because they had a camera ram, but it wasn't long enough to go all the way down the one in between
And so
Oscar
that's
and
what,
the
so
other.
that's what I would suggest, is figure out where the issue is, and at the same time, because it's a legal question in my mind, and I am not a lawyer, I would recommend consulting with your town attorney and asking him to take a look at that situation and see what does he interpret your ordinances to say.
And there is an email to him last
Yeah.
week. So,
Okay, but you haven't heard anything back?
no.
Yeah, because I think that's the question, because if it does become the town's responsibility, we might have an option through USDA under a health and safety type issue. Sorry, my kids are not, there's no COVID going on, just so in case everyone's wondering. I would ask the lawyer that question, and at the same time, reach out to AAA and Roto-Rooter, send them copies of this with some distances and tell them, hey, here's our problem. Because they do make cameras that are on a crawler that can go up and then send a little offshoot up from what everyone agrees is main. From the main,
From here,
they can send it up
go that way.
that other line. There are cameras that can do that. And that's what I would recommend, because you gotta do that anyways.
And there's a question of, it's a 2009 ordinance, so are these older pipes grandfathered in or not? Is it 2009 forward construction that has to comply? Or, you know, if you okayed the pipe to be laid in 1954 and then in 2009 you decide you're not gonna take care of it anymore, I don't know that that's legal, so that's a good thing for the attorney to answer.
That's what he's.
Yep, that would be.
But is that what you
absolutely-
said to the attorney?
Yes,
Did you ask him about being grandfathered in?
we have a question here. Kim,
Yeah. The people that fix my sewer, well, it's not fixed, but I can flush now, they ran a camera down there. And the main line from my house to was it S Street? It's collapsing.
okay.
So they know that.
Her problem is on the other block, and she is number 4, I'll say. And then number 3, number 2, and number 1, and then there's the manhole, and that's where the main is,
Yeah,
okay? So Tammy is number 4, that's the tail end. So she's plugged up, and the connecting line with all these 4 is what is the private part going to the S Street, the manhole. So she had the camera go from
The guy, the company, and I can't remember.
B and
Yeah, start with a B. You
B-
talked to him.
oh, Betsky.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
okay.
they did, because they couldn't hook me up, and I finally said, just hook me up like everybody else is. And when it collapses, it collapses. I have to flush, I have to run water.
Right.
I'm already into this $24,000.
So did you, camera from your place that direction
I don't
east?
know if they did it that way or from the manhole.
Okay, the town went from the manhole to your place. So that's that part, we did go from that direction.
And it's collapsing.
And I don't know what from your direction is. That, they haven't given me back the video of it.
Oh, well,
So-
And
they're
that's
not getting us
what
the
we'll,
money yet.
that's what we'll need is copies of these videos and an answer from the town's attorney as to whether or not it's public or not, and whether or not the failures are on the public side of things. Because if the failures are on the public side of things, we have at least one home that's getting sewer into it. We can certainly, I think, 2 that are getting sewer into them in 2 different locations, 3.
Mine was full of sewer.
Well, then by
She's
golly,
number
then-
1, this is number 2.
then.
Yeah, I was talking about her place and then Kramer's place.
Yeah, if that's the case, then my thought would be to go to USD, probably USDA and maybe ecology, and see if there's some sort of health and safety risk that we can, some form of emergency that we can get them to.
That was
help us
kind
with.
of a question I was gonna have too. I mean, Okay, so they're being called private lines by some people now, or whatever, but, so back when these were put in, were they considered city sewer lines?
I
You know what I
cannot
mean?
answer that question
So,
for you.
But I
it's-
realize
it's-
you can't, but it's kind of
yeah.
a question that, and it's not just me, it's
Yeah, and
everybody wanting to know that.
this is why the
They were
town,
probably told it was a town sewer line back then, and now all of a sudden, well, it's private.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I,
Because,
I'm not an attorney, that's why you have an attorney on call. I
Right,
would
and I'm not
strongly
trying to-
recommend.
I'm not trying to throw you under the bus.
No,
like
not
that.
at all, and I'm advising you as your engineer, what you need to do, because it's a question that needs to get answered, certainly right now.
Right.
Because if it is private, then these private individuals still have the issue of sewer getting into their basements, they need to be able to take action.
Right,
And if it's through their insurance companies, or through HUD, or through USDA, or some other private funding program, they need to do that, but we need to have that question answered as to whether or not it's private or public. And that's for the attorney, I believe, to answer. And then at the same time, parallel, I would suggest getting some video taken with actual video files that we can pursue some funding for
Right,
folks, because if we've got sewer in basements, that's just not gonna work.
And here's the other issue with it, okay, we know it's collapsing, so meanwhile, we're just gonna end up with a 50-foot crater at some point in Sixth Street with a big old sinkhole
Right.
because, I mean, not saying it's good, but you know, it's a possibility, so we just got sewage going into the ground right now, and that, I would think that'd be an emergency.
Well, septic tanks discharge sewer into the ground as a routine matter of course, so I wouldn't be concerned about the sewage sinking into the ground. I would be concerned about your road failing that just got done,
Right,
and the
Yeah.
infrastructure failure, and the backing up into people's homes is clearly
Oh,
an
yeah.
issue.
yeah,
So, I think there's a path forward, I think there's some questions, and we know who to ask and who can give us those answers. That's what I'm hearing.
okay. Well, that's making things a little more clear than.
They're not clear at all.
It's just, unfortunately, it's just not happening fast enough for for anybody, because it should have happened yesterday. That'd
Well,
be
the
in the dream
attorney
world.
should, yeah, attorneys are not always crazy responsive, but if you need me to give them a call, let me know, give me some contact info, I'm.
Yeah, cause as
free.
far as, you're the one that's in contact with him,
Yeah,
we aren't, so I guess it'd be you and Paula.
I can,
Does he have all the information already?
Yeah, I think
And he knows it's an emergency?
yes,
He should give me a brief
yeah,
on that.
I think that
Okay.
he's trying to do the
Yeah,
right
we
thing.
also need to understand that attorneys are notoriously slow on their end. But, we need to go through the procedure. If it is a, private line, then we need to, help get access to funding. Because obviously, just like that lady back there, 24,000 isn't a drop in the bucket.
No, that's some
And
change.
we still have it, but there's two ways of going at it. And as you so easily pointed them out, from this point, we know what we have, we know what we have to do. And I believe that we need to all be unified in our course of action. Okay?
And whether it's public or private, that answer will have to be made for any funding program, whether it's the homeowner that goes after it or the town. The funding agency is not going to be, they won't be legally allowed to give you funding
Until they know that.
until they know. It's a very important question to have answered. So I know attorneys aren't necessarily free and they can sometimes be expensive, but from what I'm hearing, my recommendation would be to press them expeditiously, and I am happy to support you in doing that.
And something else, just so that you know, research is being done on the easements of, in people's yards. Is Jeannie here?
Yes.
Do you have an easement with your deed or anything like that?
I've been trying to look for it and I haven't found it yet.
Okay, Underbergs did find something, out of the But there again, it's not, it just says the word easement. It doesn't say so many feet, you know, underneath the rose bush or whatever. So, that's an issue too, because your definition of easement and my definition of easement might be totally different.
Okay?
If it comes down right in between the property lines, well, whose easement is it? If it's way over here on my property, and then it comes over onto your property, so what's the definition of, does that word easement take care of everybody's property lines? Because when things were built, they didn't always go by surveyors' lines. Maybe, I don't know. So, yeah, and in the ordinance, it does reference, private line and, public line. So that's, and I had sent that to, the town attorney last week with the pictures. So, and urgent, message, so, I don't know. I will, tomorrow is Wednesday, I will, get back in with him. Give him a prod. Question?
Kind of a question comment. So I had my sewer pipe, replaced, what was it, about a month ago. Luckily for me, it was only like a 20-foot section, but it was a metal pipe that had collapsed. I was told by the plumber it was a root, but it had collapsed completely. What they found at the same time is that my water line is laying on top of my sewer pipe. So,
And that's totally illegal.
right, so
To the
here's my
extent.
kind of statement question. The town is old. Okay. A lot of things were probably built, constructed, placed without a code in mind, right? It could be that most of our properties are that way, okay? The town is old, so therefore its supply lines, its sewer lines are old. They do need to be replaced. But we have a lot of lower income, a lot of bills not being paid, and the town does not have $1 million just sitting around doing nothing. You know, so we all have to understand that there's only so much that can be done, and that's why Steve's here, is because he's here to tell us what we can try to get from the state. Doesn't mean we're going to, because there's towns like this all over Eastern Washington, begging the government for money because things like this are happening everywhere. And the last thing that we need to do as a town, in my opinion, is backstab, talk behind each other's backs. There's obviously some anger issues and frustration issues on the council. I can hear it. I haven't been to the meetings in a couple of months, but there's obviously something going on. And I think Jim alluded to that you have to work together. You guys right here, you five, not Paula, you're the ones that make the decisions. She's here to guide you, yes, and she gets blamed for everything, okay? But it's you guys that need to make the decisions. So here's the deal. You have a budget, okay? You have a budget. It's based upon what this town makes. 560 people don't make a lot of money. So how are you going to pay for her $24,000 sewer? How are you going to do that? You can sit here and blame all day long, but you can't pull water out of an empty well. It's not there. So he's here, I'm assuming, to tell the five of you what we can do. But there are no guarantees when it comes to the government. None. Absolutely none. If you read that pamphlet, basically there's this amount of money available to every single town in the state of Washington. What else can anybody do? If someone says we did the research, we're trying, then that is what you should be telling the townspeople that are coming to you. Not, well, Paula's a bitch and she doesn't know what she's doing, blah, 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 blah.
Excuse me, where do you get your information from?
I hear it all over town.
Yeah, give me some ideas.
My neighbors. My neighbors.
On the right side or the left side?
It really doesn't matter.
No.
But my neighbors are say the same thing.
Well, you know what gossip does? You drop a pencil here, by the time you get to the other end of town, that's a truck.
Have you ever
full of
played
trees.
Password, London? Yeah, I know.
We're getting,
So here's my deal. Here's my deal. You can all be mad and upset, but he's the only one that's gonna be able to tell you how my water line sitting on my sewer pipe, is it my responsibility because some yahoo built the house that way? Well, yeah, it is, because I bought that piece of property. So, when this kind of stuff happens, here's my question. How easy is it for us to get grants to fix 6th Avenue?
Well, it's a balance. It's a three-legged stool, as I see it. There's urgency, which is generally defined as health and safety. And when you have sewage backing up into someone's home, that becomes very urgent. The other two parts of it are the amount of it that is grant versus loan, because it's pretty easy to get loans. Lots of places have loans, but the problem with loans is you've gotta pay them back. And so you're spread, and a lot of communities do, but you have to spread that impact across your ratepayers. And then third is time. How much time do you wanna take? Because the programs that are primarily grant-based are tied to that emergency leg. So for instance, community development block grants, which was the last water system project that got done in town, was 100% grant. Zero impact to ratepayers. But you only get one of those a year, and once you get your one, you've kind of got to keep applying to get it. So in the very specific instance of 6th Street, I think we have a plan of action, and that's the sort of thing that I need to know as your consultant, and the mayor and I have communicated on the lift station pumps, the roof at town hall. We coordinated on some FEMA work years ago that's now finished and done. So if I know your needs, I can fill those applications out and pursue that funding for you. But you do have to have very specific scopes of work. You have to know what you want to pursue and why, because these funding agencies all want to have funding criteria that you have to meet. And you're absolutely right. You're competing with everybody else in the state who all kind of have the same issues.
okay, there's a hand up.
Mr. Dude, when you asked where she was getting her information, okay, I've asked our mayor several times about several different things. Well, I'm new to this, I don't know. So where does that leave the general public to start thinking?
Exactly, yeah.
And it came right from the mayor. From nobody else, but from the mayor.
Okay, Ms. Richardson?
Okay, we're talking to getting grants. After the conversation of this last month, we have been told grants are in jeopardy because of the investigation. So, how can we apply for grants when there's a investigation going on?
What jeopardy are you referring to? I haven't heard that.
Well, that's from everybody. See,
Who would everybody be? I'm sorry.
in ecology, and we had two gentlemen out at our house, and
Yeah, I spoke with Ecology this evening.
yes,
Yeah.
but was it Eric or
Sean.
one of those?
Sean's his boss, yeah.
So, they were very concerned because of where this leak was, and it's well documented on video, and
Yeah,
they're,
absolutely, and that's the absolutely appropriate organization and entity to be looking into this, and I very much look forward to their report.
okay, but so if they're saying, we've got a legal investigation, does that affect our grants? Is it gonna affect anything down the road?
No, I don't foresee how it would. Did you spill hydraulic fluid?
No, it wasn't us,
Did I spill hydraulic fluid?
but the
Did the
question
mayor,
they,
did the mayor, I understand where you're coming from, but I just wanna be sure that your concerns are met. That the town of Lynn is not going to be held accountable and punished for the actions, potential actions of a contractor. If Ecology, who is the proper organization, finds that there was wrongdoing, the contractor, who was operating the equipment, legally responsible for the project, and in charge of any and all reporting, they will be held accountable. But not the town of Lynn. The people of Lynn do not need to suffer for the actions of a contractor.
But if you contact the mayor to get the mayor out, mayor doesn't show up until a lawsuit is put in place. Then shows up.
But did the mayor spill hydraulic fluid?
This was over on Sixth, when they resurfaced it. The mayor's office was contacted several times.
I'm
Did
not
come out.
familiar, so.
I filed a lawsuit against the contractor.
Okay.
I
In
want
fact,
it out of court.
and that's who needs to be held accountable,
But
not the
I was
citizens of
told,
Lynn.
being as the mayor did not show up until after the fact, until somebody from Spokane came down, pictures were taken, that I could legally sue the city and win the case.
Again, I'm an engineer, not a lawyer, so I would contact attorneys and be in touch with
A
attorneys.
lot of this too, you contact the city office, nobody shows up to anything.
I cannot answer those questions, but what I can speak to is the conversation with Department of Commerce and Community Development Block Grants, which I had last week, and the Public Works Trust Fund loan, which the loan agreements were signed within the last month, and the USDA funding program, which is on the verge of giving you another $35,000 as of this month. So I'm surprised to hear that there would be a move afoot to deny the town of Lynn funding because a contractor may or may not have done something illegal, so.
okay, to finish that statement, they asked us, why didn't you or Paula call them? Why was it us that had to call them? Because we made it clear to both of you that there was an issue up there, and neither one of you addressed it. And you're still not addressing it, and then when we showed them the letter you sent us denying us the third tree, they were very concerned about that.
And we've spoken with them about that. And to address your discussion about whether or not I pursued anything, I've received in writing from the contractor on 2 occasions. I've asked them about what occurred, and they've responded to me in writing that they handled the situation properly. So I don't have any other recourse than to have that in writing. And if Ecology finds something, again, that's the contractor's responsibility. I didn't operate their equipment. I wasn't there on site. But I have a responsibility to ask them what happened and document it. So if the contractor should be responsible if in fact there is an issue. And Ecology, again, is the proper organization to be in touch with, and you have every right as a private citizen to reach out to them and talk to them, and I look forward to hearing what they have to say formally.
Okay, is there any?
And if we want to continue this discussion, that's fine, but I would also like to spend our time talking about funding opportunities and what the town can achieve.
And I believe that's the course that we should take now.
So, there's a sewer issue on Sixth. I understand there was a question about water mains under Fifth. Mr. Dew? The water mains under Fifth?
Yeah, so I was away with the fairies for a minute, yeah. If you, well, actually, if you walk out the church, go down about 50 feet, that point there is where we repaired 3 times, and it's got patches on.
Okay, is that part of that set of drawings? The mayor mentioned to me that she had found a set of drawings that had replaced some water main.
2002. The 2002
2002.
water main.
I know 5th Street.
2002 5th Street water improvement.
I haven't had a chance to look at those drawings, but I would like to take a look at those. And if that main was in fact replaced, I'd like to have us finish our conversation as to whether or not that's still an issue or not, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to put down good pavement and then tear it up and be
Exactly,
replacing
and
it
I can
again.
tell you now, that was Christmas, that was weeping.
Okay,
You know, you get a little bit of residue come up, that's how it started last time.
yeah.
Okay, and I, by all rights, I asked, Robert to do whatever pictures that he had at that time when they were fixing them, and he's still looking for them,
Okay.
so,
Well, let's,
that would
if
help.
we can, I mean, I would.
I mean,
like
memory
to
serves me
continue-
pretty good.
No, hey, no questions whatsoever. I would like to take a look at those drawings and kind of see what's out there, because, yeah, we don't want to be.
And also, I was asking, too, was it the main line, or was it the private line that you were referring to? So that's, well, I'm just telling Mr. Nelson that that's what I was telling him.
Well, let's take a look at those
Even if that's been
drawings.
an offshoot to a meter,
Yeah.
I mean, they're still gonna need.
It's
fixing.
still, the service is still the city, still it gets to the meter, yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, that was totally wrong, you know how it swells up, iron will swell up and flake off. You keep
That galvanized is the worst, and I know you all got some of that
Okay, so
galvan in
with
town.
that
so.
thought, excuse me. With that thought, in 2002, and if it was, what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago,
Yeah, right.
whatever, would that be
Well, let's take a look at the plans. Let's take a look at the plans and then we can go from there.
faulty?
So that's fifth. So, let me give a real brief presentation on water, sewer, roads, and recreation. So water is typically there's really only one program that does 100% grant. And that is the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG. It's up to $1 million, and it's all grant, but it's pretty doggone competitive, and unfortunately, it hasn't gotten easier. It's been a challenge. The next program is through Department of Health, and if we have an extensive number of water system projects that we want to pursue, this would be the right year to go after that. If there is a widespread concern about replacing water mains across town, this might be a good time to do that. Bear in mind, there will be a significant portion of that will be loan. And that's the hard part with water, is that you get a lot of loan, and a lot of times when you have a loan grant split under those water system funding projects, because USDA is one that's absolutely this way, and the mayor knows, because of the sewer lift station pumps, they make you spend the loan first.
Yeah.
And then you get to spend your grant dollars, which puts you in a really awkward position.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the main picture for water, but again, we need to have specific projects. So the project that we're looking to put into CDBG for this year is up on Quail Court, up on the loop there, because you've got, and the reason for that is you have really small mains and they're dead ends. And so if you had a fire, and if folks remember Lamont and Pines, not Lamont, Malden and Pine City, you had a fire coming down the hill there, that would be a place you'd want some good fire suppression for. Hey, can you sit still, please? Clearly my children listen as well as my EATs. Can you go help them open the truck door, please? Thank you. Sorry, folks, my apologies. So that was the rationale behind that project, is that you don't have very good fire flow at all. And we had the emergency repair out on Vulcan, where we had like a 2-inch main laying across the top of the ground. It was a disaster. Fortunately, got that done under, I think that might have been 100% grant. That was an ECWAG. That was 100% grant. So there are some options with water, and that was the rationale behind putting in that particular project this year. Now, if there are other priorities within the water system, or sewer for that matter, I would not suggest going after money for Sixth right now, because we don't know if it's public or private at this point.
Right.
And I think USDA, if it does turn out to be public, can probably give us some help on that side of things.
Yeah, that's, I think, everybody's main goal right now is trying to figure out,
Sewer
is
on
that
Sixth, okay.
the towns or private or,
Well,
you
then
know.
let's flog the lawyer for an answer, get some video going, and get with USDA, and let's do that quick. So that's the one, hey, Dominic,
hey, as a, what, can you whisper for me?
thank you. So that's the general look on the water side of things, and you can pursue loans of all kinds. But I know for a community like Lind, where you have a lot of low to moderate income households and not a whole lot of households to spread those rate increases across, that's probably not something you're gonna wanna do very badly, or your citizens are gonna want. The sewer side is a little bit better, but the good news is, you know, I know there's issues widespread with some stuff, water and sewer wise, but the two things that I generally will look at with sewer and water systems is on the water side of things, how much lost water do you have? So you've got a meter on your wells and you've got meters at your houses. The meter on your wells is always gonna pump out more than the houses add up to, because it's gonna leak and it's gonna come out of fire hydrants and this, that, and the other. Department of Health wants you at around 10%, and you're not too far outside of that, if I recall correctly. And Mr. Dew, you may remember otherwise, but your system is relatively tight. I've got communities that are around 30% lost water. That's brutal.
Oh, wow.
And that will get the attention of the Department of Health pretty quickly. So you're not in that position, so that's good. On the sewer side of things, what I generally will look at is what do your flows do in the spring? Because your sewer treatment plant is pretty new. We are working on a land application permit for your solids so that you don't have to haul it off to Bartech and pay those outrageous fees when you've got a location to dispose of it right adjacent to it. You can save all of that. So your sewer treatment plant is in good shape, and your operator's doing a good job keeping you out of the crosshairs of the Department of Ecology. What I will look for in your pipes is what kind of flows do you see in the spring? Because if you see a big blow up and flow in the spring, that means that your snow melt, your groundwater, and your rainwater is getting into your sewer pipes, and you don't want that, right? Your sewer plant isn't designed to treat rainwater, it wants sewage. And I don't see that with your facilities. And again, if you all are familiar or aware of some big spikes in flow, I'm not. So that's good. I think other than the issues on 6th, which I think are specific to some small lines that are of a specific type, that Orangeburg pipe, let's work that problem as an individual problem. And if we want to look at the sewer system as a whole, there are some ways to do that at no cost to you through Evergreen Rural Water District. Evergreen Rural Water has a camera. It's not as big as the one or as long as the one that you'll need to use for these lines on 6th, but it's a camera that can videotape, and it's really helpful. They also do something called smoke testing, that you can figure out if you've got some leaks, or if sometimes your sumps will be tied into the sewer, and downspouts from your roof can be tied into the sewer. And so that'll tell you if that's an issue. So there's a couple of things you can do there. But I think the specific issue on 6th is one, I think we have a roadmap, and I'm really sorry for all of y'all that are having to deal with that. That is lousy. I've had sewage come up in my basement a number of times. In the first year I bought a house, anecdotally, when you buy a piece of property, get a sewer line video and keep that sucker. Is there anything else? So water, sewer, and with sewer funding, CDBG works there too. The other program that's really helpful is through Department of Ecology. And they will do loan grant splits as well, but they let you spend the grant first. And if you don't end up spending the loan, they're okay with that. So that's a funding program that's really flexible.
So they're opposite of the...
They're the opposite of USDA. They're the ones you want to go after. And CDBG knows this. So if you have a sewer project, CDBG, they don't write it into their manual, but they want to see you go after ecology money first and then go after CDBG's money, because then you'll be asking for less of theirs, so they want to be able to spread it out more. So and then USDA, of course, we have USDA funding for the lift station as well. I think that's under a health and safety deal as well. It's 70% grant too. So yeah, that's sewer. And then roadways, you've got this large packet here. If you have sidewalk projects, the best program out there historically has been the Transportation Improvement Board, or TIB, who has funded the 5th Street project and who also knocked off all of the match on your FEMA projects. So all of that FEMA patching that was done 3-4 years ago, 100% grant. So there's been very, very, very little loan taken out by the town of Lynn. So you're very fortunate in that regard. With streets, TIB is the best game in town. There are others out there, but they are usually, they're usually gonna be trail related or ADA compliance a lot of times they can, if you have a safe routes to school, if you wanna add sidewalks and ADA ramps to connect different residential parts of town to your school, which you have some of that need. Those are out there, but a lot of those do require some loan grant split.
Okay, so you mentioned the TIB, and at last council, meeting, there was a bid authorization form, and, it was not okay to sign, for $416,723 is,
Well, on that one, let's take a look at those water system maps, see where the water mains and the services run, and then determine, have they been replaced? Are they still a problem? And if they're still a problem, can we shuffle the scope around? Is it something that we just have to say, hey, we're gonna put the project off? We can figure that out. I
Right,
don't
because
think
we
there's-
figured it'd be better to find out
Yeah,
before you have to go dig up brand new.
yeah,
right.
yeah, I don't think there's a huge rush to authorize
Okay,
that
that's what
tonight
my-
per se.
My question
Let's-
was time.
No, we've got some time, and
Okay, good.
if I don't wanna have it pushed past another construction season. So
Right.
honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, the way escalations are going right now, if we wouldn't get prices that were too high at this point in the year anyways, in which case we could bid it again in November, December, and hope that we get a better result, if that's the case. Prices are nuts. I mean, everybody in